Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Oh, welcome back, everybody. What we're going to talk about today, I believe, is something that could really change your life. And I really mean that. And I think that's where we're going with this today. She is a storytelling coach and screenwriter. She helps you take any kind of communication, written communication, and make it the best it can be. And that could be you're trying to tell a story. That could be a story on a website. That could be your LinkedIn profile. That could be a resume. That could be, hey, maybe you're writing a book. Maybe you need an extra set of professional eyes to help comb through what you've communicated to make sure it's on point. Today, we're going to talk about the story we tell ourselves. Let's bring her in here. Michelle Cutler joins us. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Steve. Thanks.
The story we tell ourselves. I believe that we're telling ourselves a story almost every moment of the day. Everything inside our minds is resonating with a story. And it could be how you feel about yourself, how you feel about somebody else, how you feel about a coworker, what you're going to do for the day, what you're not going to do for the day. Am I going down the right path with our topic today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the reason I decided to sort of zero in on this idea today was, yesterday was Thanksgiving. We have holidays coming up, a lot of social engagements. A lot of times we're seeing people that we maybe only see once a year, or maybe we see them in the office or at school or in certain particular environments and then go to the holiday party. And in those moments, you're like, the story you tell may be updated, might be a version of who you are, not a version, but who you are right now. And is everybody ready for that? Some people don't want people to change or to grow. You might walk see your parents or see a cousin or somebody who just doesn't want to see you in anything other than you were at 12 or 17 when you were screwing up, or at 20 when you thought you had it all, and then it's something different now. So I think the stories we tell ourselves are really important in terms of how we tell them to other people, how we present ourselves to other people as truthfully as to who we are.
So I'm a believer in what we think dictates our future. You're almost writing you're writing your story with the way you're thinking. For example, if you go into we're talking about Thanksgiving, holidays are here and such. Let's say you're going to a gathering and you have in your mind there's going to be conflict. You're telling yourself that story. Uncle Vinny's going to start in again with his politics. I don't want to deal with that. Then this is going to happen. Then that's going to happen. If you're planning it out, you're writing the way it's going to go, and maybe in a negative way. It's my belief that there's a really good chance that you're going to follow your own story. Whatever you're writing in your mind, call it manifestation, whatever you want to label it. But that's how it's typically going to go. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. You just reminded me of something actually where the first screenwriting job I had was for a director who was very, not tyrannical, but unpredictable and a bit combative, and had told me from the day one that I should come into work every day prepared like a lawyer for trial, right? And this is supposed to be a creative environment. So it was very challenging, and I was, fresh out of graduate school at the time. I was quite young in my profession, and I was afraid. I would walk into work every day just terrified. This is going to just be an awful day. And I probably brought that in with me, and that kind of poked the bear a bit. I think that actually created, exactly like you're saying, it sort of manifested itself. And I remember one day I stopped for coffee on the way, and I was just so tired of feeling anxious about what the day would bring with this, this environment. And I just decided in that moment, why don't I think that it's going to go okay? Like, why can't I walk in there thinking it's going to be great? We're going to have a productive time. It's going to be excellent. And I tried it, and I would say it wasn't like it was the magic serum that changed everything, but it certainly changed the game. It certainly changed the way things unfolded, our communication, our progress. So I think I think you're right. You can really tell a different story to yourself, make yourself the hero instead of the victim. And how would you be as the hero? And try try it on for size.
Yeah, certainly. Like if somebody says, but let's say they're going on a job interview and they're thinking, "Oh, I'll just do it. I'll just go. Probably not going to get the gig anyway, but I'll just show up." You're telling yourself the story
Hmm.
of how it's going to go. And maybe you might have in your mind some evidence to back that up. Like let's say that the last interview didn't go your way, but you might have told yourself that story too. So it's almost as if you're writing a story that you want your subconscious to follow.
Hmm.
That makes sense?
Hmm. Yeah, totally. And you can take that as well to, I mean, I find that that's a very experiential type of power. I think when I will take it to like the yoga mat, or if I'm going running, I'm not an I've always said I'm not an athletic person. I grew up with that, telling myself that story. You're not athletic. Don't even try. It's not even worth, look at all the other girls. We used to play lacrosse and field hockey and these sports. I just were too much for me. I just was like, ah, and I just assumed I'm not athletic. And as I got older and I started trying different things, I broke that narrative. I didn't know I was going to do it. I kind of snuck myself into it. I signed up for a race because my partner was running it. And I thought, oh, I don't want to miss all these villages in Morocco that you can only see on foot. I'm going to run that too. I didn't think I'd run. I thought I would just kind of, trot, which I did, but I did make it to the finish line, and I just kind of teared up, and I thought, how many other things have I told myself I can't do that I can do? Like let me now look at my life and think, what are all the things I've said I'm not, or I can't, or that's not me, and do I want to try it? Because there's nothing to lose, really. I mean, we're talking about things that are not like harming yourself. We're talking about things that in some way stretch yourself or create new experiences, new relationships, perspectives, new environments.
It's interesting what we're talking about today because normally we talk about somebody needing the insight on how to write a story, the best way to present the words, the best direction, what things to include in it. These are stories in our mind. So I appreciate you taking a different stance on the story, but stories are so impactful, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, that's how mankind differentiates itself from everything else, is because we use language to communicate. Even if we use sign language, we use image language. These are in some languages, one character has so much more meaning than just one letter or one word in another language. So in some languages, one word encompasses many, many things, whereas in another language, we need 10 words to say one thing. So I think, that's how we evolve, and again, if we want to take that down to the practical, that's how we relate in business, that's how we relate in social environments, that's how we relate to ourselves. So, there is, like you always say, there really is a story in everything if you want to look for it, if you want to be open to it.
So do you feel that we should write everything down? And what do I mean by that? Let's say you're going into that party situation that we hypothetically gave earlier. You're anticipating the way it's going to go. You think you know the way it's going to go. Maybe that's based on experience. Doesn't mean it has to go that way. Should you physically write down the way you want that story to go?
I think I think there's nothing wrong with the exercise. I think the exercise itself, in a creative way, is is liberating and can definitely free you of any sort of preconceived ideas, as long as the story you're telling is not based on the preconceived ideas. I mean, you can, do something called like flip the script, where maybe you write down exactly how you think it's going to go. They're going to think my dress is like this, or I mean, these are things I've had before, like, oh, my
Of,
shoes,
yep.
these things, or I'm not, not feeling particularly social. This is how it'll go. And you can write down these sort of the limiting ideas and the negative ideas, and then flip it and literally reword it to see how it is if it's just the total opposite, and have fun with it. And even if that's not, you're not writing the script of how the scene will play out in life, you have no control over what other people will do, but you have control over what you bring into a room. And so just like my example with my first, boss as a screenwriter, the director, just by changing my mental state walking in there, I'm sure I changed the room in some way. It just, I brought a lighter, more open, optimistic version in. And perhaps that was what my job was, and I just didn't even know it.
Hmm. You said limiting. So I want to dig back into that because now we're going down the road of limiting beliefs. And that's kind of where I was going in the very beginning here too.
Mhm.
Limiting beliefs are those things that the stories we tell ourselves based on our past. And that could be our childhood, those things that were put in our subconscious that we experienced, that we carry. Like, for example, let's say your parents split up when you were very young, and now you have a subconscious fear of abandonment or maybe being alone.
Mhm.
So you tell yourself that story over and over again that you have a fear, like, oh, no, I have nothing to do on this holiday or things like that. It doesn't mean it needs to be that way if you realize it. And I think even writing it down just crystallizes what's in your mind and what you really want to take place.
Yeah, and they're exactly there. And again, with this idea of writing it down, another thing to do is something that we call it reframing through evidence,
Mm.
where if you write down, let's say, the last Thanksgiving, like I'll give you a quick example. Yesterday we had Thanksgiving. Usually it's just my mother, my husband, my partner, myself. And we had some guests in from Canada. I talked to you about them before with their baby. A baby changes the whole game, like the whole environment, in like the
Mm.
best way. And I said to my mom afterwards, I was like, wasn't it nice to hear other people's stories? Like we've heard our stories so many times. It's so nice to hear other people's stories. It actually made the stories we told have new life in a way. Even though my mother told a story I've heard hundreds of times, she kind of changed it a little bit. She was asked questions by people who didn't know the answers, and so she, in that way, reframed it through evidence because she realized, oh, there was proof of something else that I had forgotten about, and now this story is taking on a new light. And if you think about, like, if you could say, well, last year I had no one came, or last year nobody ate my turkey, ate the stuffing, or whatever, any of these things. No one likes my cooking. How about that one? That's a good one.
Mm.
Nobody likes my cooking. Why should I bring, they want me to bring a dish to whatever party, wherever it is. Everyone should bring a dish. No one likes my cooking. And then if you look back and think about the many different times you've cooked and many different occasions and think, oh, wait, maybe people do like my asparagus. Wait, maybe that did work. Maybe my muffins are actually kind of good. Um, when you find the proof of it, it can also change that sort of cloud you might walk around with on certain things that you don't feel so good about. Um, not everybody's going to abandon you just because your parents broke up, but I have gone through that as well, that same feeling, um, for the same reason that you used.
Hmm.
And I, am now in a relationship for almost 20 years, and I had never thought that I would be that. I never thought, here's the story I told myself. I'm not marriage material. I'm not, I'm commitment phobic. I don't have long-term relationships because that's not who I am, because I didn't grow up in that, right? But then I looked in my family and I was like, oh, wait a minute, my aunt and uncle have been together 60 years. There is somewhere in my family evidence, of the ability to have these longer relationships. And clearly that was something I wanted. That was clearly something I craved, but I didn't know how to as you say, manifest it or be open to it out in the
Hmm.
world until I actually sat down and examined the proof,
Yep.
that it's
Yeah.
not predestined in
But
that way.
it's false evidence. We write
Yeah.
that story based on false evidence, and that evidence is what's in our
Hmm.
subconscious. And it's it's amazing when you go walk that journey and you learn these things. And I've learned a lot from doing podcasts with people like you, Michelle. And the one thing that resonates is we all have this one belief in some shape and form that we're not good enough.
Hmm.
All of us. And it can be in many different areas. I'm not good at sports. I'm not good at relationships. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at that. We all have it, and it comes from our childhood. And it could have been one moment in your childhood that defined it. You could have been your mom. You could have done a painting at 8 years old, and you could have said, Mom, look what I did. And your mother said to you, well, that's really nice. We know the sky isn't green. It's blue. Now, come on. You could do better than that. And right away, right away, it's been placed in your subconscious. I just got a memory. Can I share with you, Michelle?
Please, please, please. I love it.
I wanted to be a cartoonist. And it was almost my therapy. My parents did get divorced when I was younger. Always wanted to be in radio. So it was those two things, cartoonist and radio. Same age, 9 years old. I always wanted to do that. 11th grade, Ms. Meyer, art class. I do a painting. I think it came out pretty good. It was a fall scene with the wheatgrass leading your eye to this rustic barn. Sky wasn't coming out. The clouds weren't coming out great. I just couldn't. They weren't looking good. I said, Ms. Meyer, can you help me with the clouds? She takes the brush, and they're done. Came out great. And she looks at me and she goes, you know what you are? You are an underachiever. That's a teacher. And
I didn't know that. I didn't know that was going to be the diagnosis for that one.
neither did I.
Wow.
And I can tell you the angle of the sun, the time, where my desk was in that classroom.
Hmm.
I never forgot it. Now, truth be told, I'm not really sure how that impacted my life, whether I keep trying harder or the other way
Right.
around. Bottom line is, I don't forget that. I went on. Maybe it was helpful because 12th grade, I was named class artist. And my cartoons were in the class newspaper, which back in the day, that was a big deal. And it was a
Yeah.
true newspaper, like real newsprint, tabloid, the whole deal. So maybe Miss Meyer did me a favor. I'm really not 100% sure on that. But that's a belief that I took with me to the day. It's right there. And you know
Yeah.
what? One final thought on that whole story. The final thought was the following year, a local newspaper, community newspaper, did a story on my comic strips being featured in the public library. And the story is on the wall in the other room in my office. And there's a
Nice.
quote for me that says, I'm a perfectionist. I was 17, so this was the year after Miss Myers' con. So maybe that's where that came from. I don't know. And I rode that perfectionist train until only about 5 years ago, where I realized nobody's perfect. Stop it.
Not only that, it's exhausting.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, that's an interesting, my parallel to that would be that I have a folder. My mom, for some reason, kept a folder of like all my homework assignments just from second grade. I don't know why it's any of the other grades. It's just second grade. And on all of these assignments, my teacher, Mrs. Appleman, wrote, "Nice job, please finish." So I look now and I'm like, woo, I wasn't a finisher. I just didn't complete things. And
Hmm.
at a certain point, that really bothered me. And I decided I needed to complete everything, which is not a great blanket strategy because not everything deserves your time and attention to completion. Like if you're really paying attention, some things require you could dedicate more time to one thing rather than finishing everything just to finish.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to hit that wall too, where I pretty much exhausted myself with completions and not really feeling the connection to the process, like not understanding that I don't need to finish everything. I just need to finish the things that really deserve it, that really are fulfilling. Um, just to be respectful of the process and of my time and my energy and all of the investment that you can put into something. But it is important to, I've realized, to experience the completion, to experience crossing the finish line, to experience pressing send or submit or post or, anything that we look at now as sort of really easy everyday stuff, but is still, worth being discerning of your time. Is everything worthy of your time? Just because you have 15 things on the to-do list, are all 15 things important, in that way? Do they have the same importance? Probably not.
Interesting, and thank you for sharing that. The person that said, now finish it, how do they know you weren't done? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I only colored in like half the states.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah.
We're talking second grade level. It was like, just color the states. Remember, we used to get like the mimeograph map of the United States and you would color them so you could kind of learn where the states were. I just like stopped. Like I didn't color in like Maine or New Hampshire or, Michigan for some reason.
What
Just
a
stopped.
what
No
a
good reason. I turned it in.
what a memory, Michelle. I haven't heard that word in forever.
Mimeograph.
Mimeograph. Or do you remember
Smell comes back to you.
the ditto? The ditto that was
Yep.
run on that machine and had the blue ink. And when it was just printed, if you will, the paper was still kind of moist, and all you did was want to just smell
Sniff the memo.
Right, exactly. Wow.
Sniff the ditto.
Crazy memories coming out there. Interesting topic today. I appreciate it. You're all about the story, and also about crafting the best story. And we tell ourselves these stories all the time, 24/7. I'm sure we're telling ourselves story when we're sleeping. In our dreams, there's a story coming up there. But
Absolutely.
Right. It's when we get
We could do a whole episode on dreams, writing dreams. They tell you a lot. You solve the problems of the day in your dreams. Like that's why when you don't dream, you're sort of losing a whole, secondary, tertiary power of your mind.
You run even deeper than I ever thought. In a good way, fantastic way. You're a master craftsperson at story creation and the process, but never saw you running, deep on this other side. But that just, gives you more in your arsenal in terms of understanding how the mind works. And
how to work with people. I mean, a lot when sometimes, like, as someone comes to me for help on one thing. And then we really start opening up other things where they see, oh, maybe there's a series of essays. I thought I was just writing this one blog post, for example. But then realizing like there are these sort of tendrils, these other threads that can come from it, and that those are also important to this person to share or to explore, And as we've been saying the whole time, writing, verbal storytelling, they really work together. And, when you're writing the printed word, like I had my Huffington Post piece come out on Tuesday, and, I was telling my aunt's story, and she had died alone in her house and wasn't found for 4 days. And for me to understand why and how that happened, sent me on a journey of investigation. And so I told this story, and I received so many interesting emails and comments, people sharing their stories, people asking questions. And so opening up that dialogue has helped me sort of move into the next phase of accepting the loss, accepting perhaps my responsibility as a family member in the
Sure.
loss and how it happened. So there's like multiple things to gain. You have your, emotional sort of resolution or peace of mind moving forward, new relationships, understanding how systems work. It becomes educational. You really can't lose if you really want to explore your stories in depth.
Amazing. Wonderful talking with you. What's the best way to find you if somebody wants to craft the perfect story?
Yeah. Well, and my website's the best. I really cover a lot of these topics there, and you can contact me through the website, which is www.michellecutler.com, which is MICHELLECUTLER.com. And then I'm also, as I've told before, on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I can be reached. I'm out there.
Wonderful talking with you today. Really was.
You too.
Thank you. And we'll catch up soon. We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.